Hi, this is Karen Gaines, your nonprofit finance guide, and today I am going to talk about the balance sheet, or what it is called in the nonprofit world, the statement of financial position. Now, in my position, out of all of the financial statements, I believe the statement of financial positions is the most important piece of financial information because it shows you where your organization is at a certain point in time. It shows how financially stable, how financially healthy your organization is. So it's good to have an understanding of the statement of financial position so you can just see where your nonprofit organization is as in terms of finances, in terms of financial health. All right, so what I have in front of me is a fictional statement of financial position. Okay, this is all made up. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to just review the statement of financial position so that you have an understanding of it. So that when you receive your financial statements, you can go through and really understand your financials and know what questions to ask if you ever have any questions. Okay, so I'm just gonna. This is in whole is your statement of financial position. When it comes to the financial statement of financial position, your assets will always equal your liability plus your net assets. Okay, so your total assets and your total liabilities and net assets, these two numbers should always be the same. If they're not the same, then there's an error somewhere. And if you're using a software, for the most part, they're not going to let those amounts get out of balance because of the way it's set up. Okay, so I'm just going to go over each section. I'm going to go over the assets and the liability section and the net asset section. Okay, so let's start with the assets section. So the asset section generally consists of current assets, other current assets, and your fixed assets. Okay, now this is a simplified version. If you have a larger organization or something that's a little bit more complex, you're gonna have more accounts. But I'm just using a simplified version of this. Now, when you're talking about assets, you're talking about anything you can generate benefit from. It's essentially any future benefits that you can obtain. Okay, so when you're talking about the statement of financial position, you want to categorize these assets in order of its liquidity. So the most liquid type assets you have will go at the beginning of the asset section, and the least liquid assets you have goes at the bottom. So liquid really means anything that you can convert to cash quickly. So we have our cash account and our investment account. A cash account you can get anytime. You can just go to the bank, withdraw it, and boom, you have it. Investments, it can be slightly less liquid. You may have to wait to get investments out depending on what type of investments. Okay, it can be a mutual fund, or it can be CDs that you have to wait several months to get out. And if you have long-term investments, it may be even a good idea to put the investments, after your receivables. Again, it depends on what type of investment you have. if it's liquid, if you can go in and get it anytime, yeah, put it after cash. If you have to wait like 6 months to get it, put it, maybe towards the bottom of the total current asset section. And then you have your accounts receivable and your pledge receivable. Um, these your accounts receivable are any money that your clients or customers owe you. They've received their services or products and they've not paid you yet. And your pledge receivables are essentially donors that have pledged to give you a certain amount of money in the future, but they've not paid you yet. So with your accounts receivable and pledge receivable, um, generally you would expect to receive money for those within a few weeks, a month or two at the latest. But these should be fairly liquid. You should be getting money from your receivables fairly quickly. If you're not, you actually have a different problem. You probably need to make some phone calls and ask, hey, where's my money at, and etc. But your accounts receivable and pledge receivable, it shouldn't be long term. It should be a few weeks to a month, maybe two. Now we're going to go to our next section, our other current assets. These are less liquid. And I have listed here undeposited funds, prepaids, and deposits. Undeposited funds are simply cash that you have on hand, but you haven't deposited in the bank yet. Okay, and then prepaids. This can be payments made for future obligations, such as maybe your rent, or maybe you're going to rent a facility in the next few months and you had to put down some type of deposit or prepayment. Those are all of your prepayments, anything in which you've paid for but not utilized. And then I have, the deposit. And the deposit is a deposit that you may have had to pay on a rental space or building. You can just put it right there in the other current asset section. So this section, in total, it is a little less liquid than the current assets I have listed up here. Then you have your fixed assets. Your fixed assets are your least liquid type of assets. And I've just named two vehicles and building, but the fixed assets are generally larger in nature. They are going to be assets in which it'll be harder to receive cash from. So let's say you want to sell your vehicle and get that 19,500, or at least as close to it as possible, from that sale. Well, you'll likely have to put an ad in the paper, or let people know, hey, I have this vehicle for sale, and then people have to come out and look at it. So there's a whole process for selling a vehicle, and the same goes with the building. You have to go through a whole process to get a building sold. That typically takes a longer time, and it's a lot more effort. Okay. And then you have your total assets right here. Okay. So next section we have is the liabilities in your net asset section. Okay, so let's just start with liabilities. So your liabilities are essentially any obligations that you have. So your current liabilities typically have an obligation that is less than a year, and your other liabilities typically have an obligation that's greater than a year. that's a good rule of thumb that you can use. So you have your accounts payable, and so those are just, miscellaneous bills you have to pay. Credit cards, expenses that you've charged on your credit card, and now you have to pay that credit card bill off. Again, I just use fictitious numbers, and your total current liabilities is $1,950. And then you have your other liabilities. These are longer term obligations. So you have deferred revenue, and this is an account that is seen often on nonprofit financial statements. And your deferred revenue is simply money you've received but have not earned yet. And you see this most often with grants. So you'll have a grantor that will provide you $20,000 upfront to deliver a service. However, you've not delivered that service yet. You've not used the funding yet. And so until you use it, it'll just sit as a liability account until you start using that funding. Okay, and some nonprofits, they'll have a deferred revenue for each grant just so that they can see how much funding they have for each grant that they have. So they can see it, and also the board of directors or anyone else who's viewing their financials can see it. Then you have a bank loan. This is, bank loan, mortgage. These are more debt, or these are debts that are incurred, and you typically just have to make a monthly payment for these type of debts. So these type of liabilities will go at the bottom of the list when it comes to liabilities. All right, so next section is our net assets. So within the net asset is essentially your total assets less your total liabilities. And your net assets is comprised of unrestricted funds and restricted funds. Now, your unrestricted funds are any funds in which you receive from, donations or, even grants, in which you can use the money in any way that you want to. All right? You can use it however you please. So those are the best kind of funds. And then you have your restricted funds. And the restricted funds are funds that are obligated for a specific purpose. So let's say a donor comes in and donates $5,000 for you, for your nonprofit organization. But the donor says you can only use this $5,000 for educational material. That's it. Okay? Well, there's a restriction. There is a purpose for the funds the donor donated. So in that case, you have to put it in restricted funds. So when you're talking restricted funds, just think about the purpose. The purpose, what are the purpose of the funds? There's typically a purpose, some type of course, restriction on those funds, and you may have to, if you have a lot of restricted funding, you may have to maybe create a separate spreadsheet to list all of those restricted funds. But they're dedicated for a specific use. And so now you have your net revenue, and in this case it's $64,750. And so when you add up your total current liabilities, your total other liabilities, and net revenue, you have your total liabilities and net assets of $206,700. And I actually just realized I put the wrong wording. This should be net assets, not net revenue. So, sorry about that. But, um, it's still net assets. It still belongs in your statement of financial position. So now, you have a understanding of your statement of financial position. So hopefully this video has been helpful for you. Let me know what you all think. Um, Thank you for watching. If you're watching via YouTube, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a great day.